Spencer Hickson with the Board Game Rundown. We are at Origins, and I'm sitting with Cliff Wiggs with SFR Inc. SFR Inc., they make dragon dice.
Yes.
So all of you who might be familiar from what, the 90s?
Late 90s.
The late 90s, dragon dice. So just, it's a war game where you're rolling dice, fantasy themed,
Yes.
and you're summoning creatures. So there's some history behind this. What is the basic history of all this?
So the basic history, Dragon Dice originally was designed by Lester Smith while he worked at TSR, and it was published by them. In that late 90s, TSR got purchased, Wizards of the Coast, who then got purchased by Hasbro.
Yeah, I remember that.
When you have those sort of mergers, a lot of products will tend to get shelved. The group of core gamers at the time, there were 7 of them, had actually already started talks with TSR to just purchase the rights full out. And ended up finally renegotiating that with Hasbro to finalize the contract. That was around 2000, and we've been supporting it for 23 years later. Just trying to modernize, streamline, and balance the game.
So it's a fan-resurrected game.
Yes.
And you've streamlined it, you've balanced it?
Yes, we streamlined it, we balanced it. In the 90s, everything, collectible was king, and every set had to be more powerful than the previous one.
Oh, I remember that.
So we had to, one of the first things we did with our rule set was to go through and try to make every die equally playable, try to make every faction and release equally playable.
Okay.
So that, it wasn't just whoever paid the most money won. We wanted a real playable board game, and we don't do anything that we would not want to buy ourselves as fans.
Yeah, and I see you've made a lot of cool changes. New, I believe I saw items of some sort.
The items, the core concept for that was from the TSR days, but we have repackaged them and we've extended the idea. We've introduced some new factions, some new species with new abilities, completely redone spells several times. And we actually have a new faction that we will be kickstarting or crowdfunding. I'm sorry, won't actually be Kickstarter. We're crowdfunding it later this year, launching it during Gen Con timeframe. So.
Oh, during Gen Con. So tell me a little bit about this crowdfunding campaign.
So the crowdfunding, the new concept is called Draculum. They're sort of clockwork dragons.
Ooh, I like that.
So one of the expansions we've had is Dragonkin for a long time, which are lesser dragons you can summon to help your armies. This will be the first time that type of Dragonkin is a playable class for a player. And we are also breaking out where previously everything is elemental based. So like, for example, goblins are a combination of earth and death. These Draculum will introduce the concept of metallic alloys. So as clockwork, they are made up of gold or silver, or copper is the third one.
So entirely new elements?
Yes, yeah,
and they have
new elements. We're using the game term alloy to keep them separate.
So they'll have their own spell lists.
Yes, they'll have their own spell list. And we kept that separate for the game terms, for the rules lawyers. Yeah. So that everything previous, it affects to this group of dice. Everything future will affect to alloys instead of elements.
Very interesting. And I heard there's a new size of die?
It will be new for a playable class. And so it is a 22 millimeter die. Most of our dice, as they get bigger, eventually you go to a 10-sided die, which are the monsters, of that faction. For this one, instead of going to monsters, it will just be a larger 6-sided die, which a lot of the players actually like, because within our game, a 1 in 10 chance is too random for most of them. They want something more predictable as they are customizing their armies.
And they're going to be worth the same number of points for when you're making your army.
Yes, similar points. Anyone who's familiar with the game, with the Dragon Slayers, Dragon Hunters, it's that same type of concept that the Eldarum faction has. The new Draculum will have the same thing. It is 20 distinct dice for the faction, which is just like all the others, packaged in much similar way. Just with completely all new icons.
I'm excited to see what these look like.
Yeah, we're excited to finally get it out. We first hinted at it. Of course, quarantine slowed everyone down, so we've been hinting at this for a long time. This is where it's finally going to be a reality, and we hope the fans are just as excited as we are to see it become real.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I'm just getting back into it after many years of it just sitting there. Um, and you have tournaments and things like
Um,
that
yes, yeah, we do run online tournaments through
online.
Tabletopia or Discord.
Oh,
If you
okay.
go out to Tabletopia, you can just start a Dragon Dice game. It will have, we've built, little bags with every die in there, so you can customize any virtual army you want. We run virtual tournaments there. We try to have regional tournaments. So the big US based one is always at Gen Con. And so if you go out to Gen Con and look at their schedule, you can see the national tournament there. And then for anyone across the pond, Europe or Australia, they have their own tournaments as well. And we try to invite the winner of each of those regional tournaments to participate in that global virtual tournament.
Oh, it's the virtual tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they don't have to travel. They can just, send in their game designs, play through Tabletopia, and we can really get a world leader without having to have the expense or cost of travel.
That's exciting. So I just wanted to ask how how did you come up with the idea for needing the new larger size die?
So we, again, like I said, it's a 10-sided die. Besides, it requires a special mold at the factory. So part of it was realistic
Yeah.
concerns.
That's what I
Part
did
of it was
point.
within the gameplay. Something 1 in 10 is just too random. Even for a dice game,
Yeah, but I've often
it's too
seen
random.
ones that have the same one on more than one face.
Yes, right.
Still
And that's
too
what we had
random.
found, is that essentially we were turning our 10-sided dice into 5-sided dice.
Ah,
So
okay.
if we were going to do that anyway, why not just stay with the 6-sided
That's a good point.
concept for this
Yeah.
faction? We'll see how it goes. If players like it, we might stay with that for the next faction. I don't know what that will be, but
That was my next question. Is
Yeah.
do you have anything else on the horizon?
um, for the Dragon Dice, no. We've been putting all our energy into this Draculum release. We are starting to play around next year with a component but standalone board game.
Really?
So we just now, we're at Origins, so we committed to expand our space specifically in preparation for that game next year. So now we're behind the 8 ball to get it done.
Yes, that's exciting. And I understand there's lore to Dragon Dice. There's books.
Oh,
And-
yes, we have done. So TSR had started. Cast of Fate was a book that they had done. We actually, as part of our contract, have the rights to the text of that. So we republished it, as well as we signed up with an author, Christopher Schmidt, who is actually here at Origins. If you
Mhm.
want to go by and see him in the artist area. He has written 2 separate trilogies within the fantasy world. One of them actually builds on a book called Chill Wind, which was originally a fan-based novel. He just wrote it online on our forums. We got permission from his family to publish that as a novel, posthumously.
Wow.
And so we now have a total of 9 books that are either new or reprints to try to develop this into a real world of ESFA.
Yeah, it almost lends itself to role playing.
Yeah, there may be ideas for that. We've got 1 or 2 ideas for role-playing systems out there. One of which, I don't know if you care to name drop or not.
Go
So
for it.
Lester Smith, who is a friend of ours, we've known him for years. He originally created the concepts. He has what he's calling a D6 by D6 system that he created for himself. He's done a Dragon Dice version of that as a role-playing. We've also done, Lester has a no HP role-playing concept that he just this month released a Dragon Dice version of that. So you can go out and buy that direct from him, as well as we're playing out, some either D6 or D20 modules. We've got a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And also, all the rules are available online.
Yes, yeah. We like to say we're in the business of selling dice, not selling rules. And so our rule book, we do print it and you can buy it, but it's the same exact PDF on our website. We want you to have the dice, have fun, help us keep this game alive.
Yeah, so if one of our IS members is interested, they can go to Tabletopia, you said?
Yeah, Tabletopia for
Tabletopia.
virtual. dragondice.com.
Dragondice.com.
Where you can get all the information about every die ever made, as well as our rule book, which is comprehensive of every die.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you for being on our show.
Okay. Thank you for
very
having
exciting.
me.
Yes, and
It's
so
exciting.
for the Board Game Rundown, I'm Spencer, and this is Cliff.
Cliff. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.